Just like Goldilocks, I like my oatmeal just right. Too much water makes it soupy, and not enough is too dry. After many times of making oatmeal, I've learned it's just right when I use 1 cup of water to a half a cup of oats. What would happen if I only had 1/4 a cup of oats? How much water do you suggest I use? I can't use the same amount for a half a cup because that would make it too soupy. So, where do we go from here? I know that I originally used a half a cup for a half a cup of oats for 1 cup of water. But now that I only have 1/4 a cup, how much water do I need? I know I need less. So where do I go from here? I know that 1/4 a cup goes into a half a cup twice. If I were to take my half cup and pour my 1/4 a cup of oats in there, it only fills it halfway. So we know I have half the amount of oats, so I will need half the amount of water. Half of 1 cup is half a cup. So I would use a half a cup of water with my 1/4 of a cup of oats. In other words, I need twice the amount of water as the amount of oats that I have. So, thinking about how we were looking at this problem, how can we represent this with an equation using variables? I need a variable for oats and a variable for water. We also should define our variables. For this particular equation, I like to think about it in terms of how much I have and how much I need. I can also represent this with my variables. So for oats, I will use an O. So 2 O's is equal to 1 W. If we plug in 1/4 a cup for the oats that we have, so 2 times the 1/4 cup of oats is equal to how much water? And as we saw before, it's 1/2 a cup of water. So 2 times my amount of oats is equal to 1 time the amount of water that I need. So thinking back to our variables, the thing that I choose the amount of would be oats. Sometimes I have a lot, sometimes I'm hungry, sometimes I'm not. So that's the thing that I change. So depending upon how many oats I have, that determines how much water I'm going to need. There are 2 key words that I just said in that sentence: have and need. In math and science, we classify what we have and what we need into 2 different categories. So we like to call them independent variables and dependent variables. An independent variable is the variable that is subject to choice, or one that is not influenced by another variable. The value of the dependent variable relies on the values of the independent variable. So again, how much oats I choose to eat determines how much water I need. Can you think of a time or a situation where the amount of something that you have can change, and that determines something else that you need? Similar to what I was talking about with how much oats I have determines how much water I need. Also take a moment to write the definition for an independent variable and a dependent variable in your own words. When working with word problems, there are different keywords used to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. For example, we don't have the symbol for addition. We have words to tell us that we need to use addition. For variables, we represent them with letters, but in word problems, they're represented with specific phrases that give us ideas that we need to use a variable. For independent variables, there are words and phrases such as for each, for every, and for dependent variables, there are such words and phrases as needed or how many, depending on. For your scenario that you created, think about those words and decide whether your wording is clear or if you can make it more clear using the keywords listed in the chart. Next, plug in 5 different numbers in for your independent variable and record your data. So if you plug in a 1 for your independent variable, after going through your scenario, what do you get for your dependent variable? Looking back at my example, if I have 1 cup of oatmeal, then I need 2 cups of water. Think about why you plug in numbers in the independent variable and double check your data to make sure it makes sense. So let's look at our word problem and see what it can tell us for what we need to do operation-wise, and also what it tells us for what we have variable-wise. Pause the video, define the variables, and write an equation. Was your independent variable people coming and your dependent variable pounds of beef? Substitute 40 in for P and solve your equation. Did you get that Brian needs 2 more pounds? Remember, you have to subtract the amount of beef Brian has from the amount of beef that Brian needs. Next time we're going to look at how variables in a word problem can change depending upon the situation or perspective of the person telling the word problem.